For those that aren't familiar, my name is Jeff Glover. I'm from Detroit, Michigan. I've been listing and selling real estate now for 21 years. This May, I entered into my 21st year in the business. And as Chris said, yep, I'm still in it with you. In fact, in the last decade, forget about what my team's done. In the last decade, I've personally averaged 100 transactions a year myself over the last 10 years. And so per year. So what I'm going to share with you is not something I read in a Facebook group. It's not something I read in a book or heard from a mastermind. What I'm going to share with you is just simply what I'm doing and what we're doing to win right now. And so I wrote down 5 keys to winning in the new market. If you want to take notes and write these down, 5 keys to winning in the new market. Now, the first one, I'm probably going to lose a third of the room on the first one because, by the way, speaking of room, we just finished up in Fresno, California. If I turn the camera that way, you'd see all the seats. Everyone just cleared out of here. And we talked a lot about what I'm going to share with you here. But if I share the first one, I'm going to lose about a third of you because you're, this is basics. I've heard about this a million times. All right. I've saved a good speaker and trainer knows to save the best for last. Now, I will tell you this. I'm starting with number 1. I actually believe number 1 is the most important. So I'm starting with the most important first, but it's not the sexiest. So we're going to talk about 5 keys to win in the new market. Starting with number 1, write this down, please. We must have a bulletproof mindset filled with emotional resilience. We must have a bulletproof mindset filled with emotional resilience. Now, here's the deal. I know you've heard about mindset your whole career. You got to, I've heard this for years. You got to have a checkup from the neck up. And, it all starts up here. And so we've heard this a million times, but really, honestly, when is the last time you wrote yourself your own personal prescription for a strong mindset? Think about that for a second. We've heard we got to have a strong mindset. We know we got to have one because you can't possibly have constant positive production with a negative mindset. It just doesn't happen. But honestly, when is the last time you actually wrote yourself a prescription for a strong mindset? Meaning, think of it like this, all right? If you tell me, Jeff, I want to have bigger biceps, a trainer is going to say, you got to do curls, right? You want to have bigger biceps, you got to do curls. But no one really gives us a prescription for a strong mind. We've heard we have to have a strong mind, but how do we have a strong mind? So I'm going to actually give you a prescription right now. If you would write these down. Number 1, moving forward into 2024, I want you to break this habit because so many of you do this. I see you commenting, chatting, all this stuff. You got to stop watching the news and reading negative threads in Facebook groups. All right. With the exception of Ojo, with the exception of the Glover U Inner Circle, with the exception of the positive and productive ones, most of them today are negative. Knock it off. Stop hanging out in those. Stop engaging. The people that participate in those conversations are the ones that aren't selling any real estate anyways. So who cares what they have to say? So if we want to have a prescription for a bulletproof mindset filled with emotional resilience, we got to stop watching the news and reading threads, negative threads in Facebook groups. We'll call that 1A. 1B. My recommendation is there's 5 days a week that you're going to be getting in your car and driving somewhere, driving to an appointment, driving to a showing, driving to a closing. My recommendation is that you're going to listen to 1 podcast per day moving forward. You're going to have your favorite Monday podcast, your favorite Tuesday podcast, your favorite Wednesday podcast, your favorite Thursday. You're going to have 1 designated podcast per day. And you can pick and choose. I don't care if they're leadership. I don't care if they're sales focused, because with podcasts, you can control what's going in your mind. When you turn on the radio, when you're listening to, you have no idea what they're going to say when you listen to news radio or when you listen to commercials. You have no idea what they're going to say. So 1 podcast per day. By the way, we have a podcast. It's called the Live Unreal Podcast by Glover U. For those of you that listen to podcasts, make that 1. All right. And make that your Monday podcast. And then have a Tuesday podcast and have a Wednesday podcast. 1 podcast per day. 1C. We have to quit hanging around negative people. We're spending way too much time with people that aren't doing anything productive. We got to quit hanging around negative people. 1D, how do I do that, Jeff? Here's a solution. You got to get to conferences. There's a reason why the best of the best agents get out of their environments, they hop on a plane, and they get to conferences. 1E, we cannot be attached to the outcome. Somebody asked, what's the podcast? It's called Live Unreal by Glover U. Live Unreal by Glover U. We have a new episode once per week. Most podcasts drop a new episode each week. We can't be attached to the outcome. All right. We have to know that things are going to sometimes go our way and sometimes they're not going to go our way. right? You've probably heard the saying before, you can't always control your first thought, but you can control your second. So what are you doing to consciously stop that train of thought if it's a negative thought? Number one, we'll say 1F. Read 1 to 2 pages out of a self-help book per day. This is a prescription for a strong mindset. 1 to 2 pages out of a self-help book per day. Now, I'm not a great book reader. In fact, I do most of my book reading when I'm on planes and they don't have Wi-Fi. All right. Or if in between, when you get to 10,000 feet, you got like 20 minutes before you're at your gate. That's when I get my reading in. At a minimum, read 1 to 2 pages a day. That's it. That's all I'm asking for. You never know what thought or what sentence you're going to read that's going to trigger something positive in your mind. And then finally, join or create a mindset mastermind group. I've had the good fortune, I know Chris was part of them as well, to join a mindset group where people are actually consciously working on their mind. They're actually working on their skills. Join or create a mindset mastermind group. By the way, you want to take your town by storm? Be the first broker or team lead in your town to create a mindset mastermind group. Invite all the co-op agents to be a part of it. All right, so I'm going to share with you 5 keys to winning in the new market. 2, 3, 4, and 5 don't matter unless we get right with number 1. And I'm going to go through these very quickly. However, that one, in my opinion, is the most important. It's not the sexiest because we've heard about mindset forever. It's not the sexiest, but I believe it's the most important because none of what I'm going to share matters unless we get right with number 1.